Hey there, Skullheads. I'm Snags.
And I'm Ol Silky.
And this week we got Stephen Bishop from Thunder Horse. And we're going to talk about their skull crushing tunage.
Oh yeah, excited about it. Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
man. I want to tell you, like, going back, Snags and I get into rapping about music, and years ago, like we love to track down like obscure late 60s, early 70s, 71, 72 heavy bands, bands like Iron Claw, Warhorse, stuff like that. And
Buffalo.
so Buffalo. So, flash forward to somehow I see Thunder Horse, and I immediately think of like Alabama Thunder Pussy, Nashville Pussy, and then seeing the album covers to the three Thunder Horse albums, I was like, oh my god, these guys are going to be amazing. And I was checking out After the Fall and really digging that, and I went back to the other two, and I had to reach out to Snags and go, dude, you got to check this band out. But it was kind of a Rorschach thing where you see something and think of something else. Warhorse is certainly not heavy like Thunder Horse, but it just had that the verbiage, and it all connected.
Yeah.
But so we just kind of sticking with some of the notes I sent you previous. I think both of us were taken with your cover art.
Yeah.
How did you guys get a hold of this? The guy who does your album covers.
Who's doing that cover art? It's killer.
Yeah, his name is Pig Hands. He lives out of Europe, and I was just kind of following his stuff and some of the like metal album artwork, like groups and stuff like that on Facebook. And I was just really digging this guy's stuff, and I reached out to him, when we had the first record, and sent him some of the demos that we had and some of the songs, and said, "Hey, man, would you be interested in working with us?" And 5 years later, we're on our third album together, and we're already talking about doing the fourth one. So to kind of wrap it all up and like finish the series.
So he's like your Derek Riggs, basically.
Yeah, and he's a super great guy. I can reach out to him for anything, anytime. And like, if I'm like, hey man, I need help with a flyer, or hey, we need a new T-shirt design. Like, we just have a really great working relationship, and the dude's a badass artist.
The cover to Chosen One specifically is just awesome. I mean, they're all good, but that one is just really powerful.
That one,
powerful image. And you know what? You look at it, and it tells you what the music's going to sound like. You're going to be getting this kind of Dune, stoner rock, Tony Iommi disciple, just killer skull crushing music. So definitely.
Yeah, I certainly did not expect to hear, mandolins and Hobbit music or something,
Yeah, I think he captured kind of. We always send him the album before he does the art, so he kind of hears it, and then he kind of goes off of that. So I think he gets us.
Yeah,
and he's done a great job of representing what we want to do, and like, we just love working with him.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I guess that answers the question. Like, if he hears your music and kind of envisions, what he wants to do.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it a little bit. I'll say, hey, this is kind of the direction we're going. Here's like a couple of songs, and and he already kind of has an idea in his head anyway, kind of built off of the last one. We've had this conversation for years where we kind of wanted to end up, and so I'm excited to see the next one on After the Fall. The last one was the first time that he actually did a full color like a layout. Like there's a big poster
Oh, that's
inside of
cool.
the album.
Oh, killer.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's like a
are your
12 by 24.
are your records gatefold, or you able to really utilize the space that some of this artwork would demand?
No, unfortunately not. The gatefold albums, we tried to push hard for one on this one, but
Uh,
the shipping and the bulk, and it takes
oh yeah,
it takes twice as much space with half as much inventory. It's a
yeah.
so the label kind of, we discussed it and opted not to do it on this one, but we did put the gatefold fold out on the inside of the sleeve.
Well, and the other thing you can, I don't know if it's not the same thing, but you could always, people that buy the digital, or maybe they can download a larger copy of the
Yeah.
artwork or something. I don't
Yeah. We got to be able to do something. We have to be able to. I'm a big fan of reading the credits and seeing everything on the inside. And
Sure.
that's one of the disappointing things about digital, is that
Yeah.
you don't get those tangible things where you can pick it up and look at it and go, oh, who did they think? What are they doing?
Yeah. I always
The art,
I miss that
the art of
digital.
Yeah,
liner notes. It's a lost art.
just the liner notes really spoke to you. Reading whoever, Kiss comes to mind. Some of these bands that had these amazing album covers, and you wanted to see who they thanked.
Yep.
Back in the day, I'd always look to see if anybody thanked Ozzy, because I was like, okay, well they're cool then.
Yeah. It was a big deal for me too. Like my first Kiss record was Love Gun, right?
Yeah.
Flip it over, looking at it, the amazing artwork, and then you see, Kiss proudly plays Gibson guitars and Pearl drums,
Right.
like the companies that they're representing.
Yeah.
And that was very influential on me at a young age. I was like, oh, I want to play Gibson guitar. I want to play. I don't play Gibsons, but at that time I really wanted to, because Kiss did.
Yeah. That's probably their best album cover, is that Kiss Love Gun album cover. I always say their best cohesive album is Rock and Roll Over.
Have you ever heard of Steven? Have you ever heard of Robot Lords of Tokyo? The band. Look them up on Spotify. You dig the music, and they've got they're basically like, they on their album covers, they'll depict themselves, and they're just like regular dudes. One guy's always wearing a UFO t-shirt, but they have a Love Gun album cover, but they're just wearing jeans and t-shirt, but they're up there with the girls everywhere. It's exactly Love Gun, but it's three schlubs instead of 4 rock gods. It's hilarious.
Yeah. What are they?
That's awesome.
What are they?
When you can pay homage like that and get away with it, that's a badass
Robot
thing.
Lords of Tokyo, great band. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noted.
So the one thing we were going to ask you, one of the first things listening to After the Fall, I noticed kind of a Melvin's influence. Is that anything that immediately comes to mind for you, or?
Yeah, we have a wide variety of influences, and I think it kind of demonstrates on that album, start to finish. Is I grew up, I'm 50, right? So I grew up in listening to great music through the 70s, 80s, 90s. The whole Seattle scene explosion. The garage scene. I took a lot of influence from all those. Like one of my favorite bands of all time is
you can hear
Jane's
that
Addiction,
for sure, especially in the vocals. You guys have got a total Jane's Addiction sound going on.
Yeah, kind of a coming down the mountain vocal style.
Yeah, that Nothing Shocking era was my favorite era of them. And also I'm probably hear like some Ministry or Al Jurgensen in my timber, stuff like that too. But that's the era of music that I am most fond of. So I take
Silky
a lot of
and I, right after high school, me and him and another friend of ours, none of us went to college, and we had this Animal House year where we all just rented a house, and We had an Elvis wall with all Elvis stuff on it. We had a shoe wall where we just nailed old shoes on the wall, and
Yeah, it was
and
insane.
I can remember you, me, and Mike. I think Mike found the album. Somebody comes home with this nothing.
No, Rob Clayton, that was his
Rob Clayton
album,
brought it over.
but nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah, nothing
and puts it
shocking,
on,
and we
and
put
we
that
were
on.
just, our minds were blown, dude. We
Floored.
were just all just sitting around going,
Totally.
"Holy!" The guitar layering and the
'Cause
texture. The Dave Navarro's work on that album is just, it's a masterpiece.
it was the same. To me, it was the same reaction to like hearing the Doors for the first time. Like this is dangerous. This is
And we
is
saw them on the
for sure.
before any of those Lollapaloozas at the they toured Ritual de la Habitual, and right after that album came out, they come to Atlanta. They play Center Stage, and
They're a small place.
That concert was incendiary. Like, he would raise. Perry Farrell was a master at controlling the crowd. He would raise the chaos until everybody's about to rip the fucking chairs out and tear the place down and burn it down. But right before we're all about to do that, he'd lower it back down again, and everybody. But it was a whole night of bringing it up to where we're about to just destroy everything, and then calming it back down. There was always at least 10 people on stage. Stage dive, and that was a killer show, man.
Shows were so interactive back then. You know, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I could not get into them after that album, though.
After Ritual,
yeah. It just, it really,
I kind of agree.
it just, I think they were our secret, and that album broke them. And like, been caught stealing. I was like, just keep that.
I actually like Strays. I have to admit, I think it's a pretty good album. Bob Ezrin, propped them up on the songwriting quite a bit on that one. But anyways,
I stopped at those first two.
So Stephen, let's zoom out and wind back the clock a little bit and tell us about how you first got into music and what inspired you to play aside from Kiss, and give us this kind of the backstory of how you started playing and then how Thunder Horse came to be. Let's let you talk a little bit.
Okay, I grew up in a family of musicians. My grandfather, my mom's dad, was a country music guitarist on like the honky tonk circuit down here and like on the Gulf Coast, and he played with everybody: George Jones, Conway Twitty, Elvis. Like he played all of them. That's what they did. Yeah. Back when he was doing the honky tonk circuit in the 50s and like early 60s before he went to Hollywood.
Wow.
He was playing through places like Beaumont, Texas, and Liberty, and like little like beer joints, basically.
And so you had people like standing in with like Scotty Moore and Bill Black. Is that what you're saying?
I guess it was kind of like the Chitlin circuit back then. Like these guys would come through and they would just hire the local musicians. Give them sheet music and say, "Hey, man, this is
like Chuck
here's
Berry
our set
does.
for the night."
Chuck Berry shows up. That's how he does his gigs. He shows up and he's like, "It's in G," and everybody just tries to keep up.
No, but I wasn't aware that Elvis did that because he had Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana, but So
this is stories I'm hearing from like hand me down from relatives.
That's
like that.
So cool.
But it was, and there was always musicians around the house. Like my grandfather would have all his friends over, and they would sit around and play, and it was like all these honky tonk guys,
Right.
And I started playing trumpet in 5th grade, so at a pretty young age, and I played trumpet my whole life through high school, and was a marching band, jazz band, and all that stuff. And was just always kind of turned on. And like I said, at 50, I grew up with like 70s. I grew up with yacht rock, I grew up with disco. I grew up with Kiss. I grew up, and back then, having the album and really looking at it.
Don't forget the Mighty Foghat. Got to include them.
And absolutely. Nazareth, you're like one of my favorite bands
too.
So, but, growing up, listening to a huge variety of music, whether it was country music or disco or everything in between, it was just always on at the house. We always had music playing. and it just made a huge impression on me. And I did my very first band, like I was in a horn funk band. I was a band nerd, playing trumpet. So like I had 300 musicians to choose from in my high school. At 16, I did my first band, and we're hitting the road. As soon as we get out of school, we'd hop in an RV and like hit the road, and I've been doing it ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just
So you're doing like a funk, like a Graham Central Station, or
yeah. Back then it was
Blood, Sweat, and Tears with the horns, or
it was really heavy, like Sly and like Parliament inspired. Like with a full horn line. It was like 11 people in this band. Had a DJ because it was the late 80s, early 90s, so we had a guy that was like DJing because we like everybody wanted to be like Cypress Hill and shit like that.
Yeah.
So it was fun, and then, but I was always kind of like the rivet head guy, right? I was in band. I was the dude wearing Nitzareb shirts and Ministry shirts and shit. So I got into that, and in the mid '90s, I got into a band called Pitbull Daycare, which is my guitar player.
I just have to pause and say that's a killer fucking band name, Pitbull Daycare. That's awesome.
It was totally meant as a joke. It was just meant as a joke, and it stuck.
That's cute.
And but we toured with Ministry and Revolting Cops and Jenna Tortures, and like we played festivals, like we were on Cleopatra Records. I toured with that band for 12 years.
Yeah, the Jenna Torturers came through Atlanta and did an in-store at Tower Records where I worked, and they did like this whole kind of leather bondage thing in the store. It was awesome.
Pretty crazy.
I just got a text from Ol Silky saying I forgot to pimp our website. We're supposed to pimp the website at the beginning of each episode, so we're going to take a 5-second public service announcement. Go to snagsandsilky.com.
Oh my God!
Check out our merch store. Check out the playlists. We're going to have a playlist, a Thunder Horse playlist for you cats to check out, and some other Thunder Horse links, and
Yeah, the playlist is already done and on there. So unless if you have
not on the website, it will be when everybody's listening to this. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So Pitbull Daycare. How long did that band last? I'm actually looking them up on Spotify right now because it sounds freaking awesome.
It's about 12 years. About 12 years we toured with that band from I'd say like 98 through 2006. I think was our last tour. And that was the one with Ministry.
So we will also have a Pitbull Daycare playlist on the website.
Steve, did you ever come through Atlanta and play like Masquerade or?
Yeah, a few times.
Did you?
Played Masquerade. We played another place too. It was like kind of a warehouse style joint. It was really weird because like Atlanta has like a lot of wrestlers there, right? So
yeah.
All these WWE dudes were showing up to the shows. It was pretty fun. It was
International Ballroom or
no, it was like a smaller joint. Had like a lot of graffiti on the stage. This might have been called Club Graffiti, as a matter of fact. It was like back in the day. It was probably late night.
See, we were all over. I wonder if I saw you guys.
We were going to shows like every night back then.
Oh, every night, yeah.
Yeah, the Masquerade most likely because, like I said, we came through there with like some pretty good bands. Atlanta was good. Some of my favorite tattoo artists in the world were down there. It's like Tony Olivas, and then just hanging out in 5 Points and over at the Masquerade. And it was just it was a hop in town.
Yeah, it's very different. I'm in Florida now, and Snags is up there still, but
in the A.
Atlanta in the early 90s was absolutely the place.
Greg Ginn,
was awesome.
Greg Ginn is playing tonight at the Masquerade with his version of Black Flag with the 3 hired jackasses, but it's Greg Ginn on guitar, so
right.
Always something going on.
Sure. So you're 12 years done with.
Yeah, 06 we did our last tour. In 07, somewhere around there. 08 we officially disbanded, and then I took 10 years off. I just got out of music altogether. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And
what happened? Just you were fed up with the whole scene?
Yeah, I was fed up with the labels, and I was fed up. We were all fed up with each other. Cleopatra made us put out a real shitty record, that the one called Unclean. It was terrible. We had Fred Corey from Cinderella like produced it, and it was just a shit album.
What
It was terrible.
in God's name?
We were like
in 2006. Would Cleopatra Records make you do an album with the dude from Cinderella? What are they thinking?
It was a bad idea. I think they wanted us to be more like fucking Candlebox or something, and we just weren't. You know what I mean? Like the record just wasn't. Now we did get some notoriety from it because like one of the songs was in that movie Saw, the original Saw. We did a bunch of television stuff with it, and we were living in LA at the time, and we were hanging out partying with the right people at the right places.
Right.
So we got pretty popular there in the early 2000s, and then the scene changed. Like all of a sudden, Manson wasn't cool anymore. White Zombie wasn't cool anymore. Like you had all this screamo emo bullshit that was happening.
Yeah,
the crowds went from like hot pinup, like goth chicks to like fucking 13-year-old little kids. You know what I mean? It's like the music just changed overnight. It seemed, and we lost relevance, just like a lot of bands do. We just we ran our course, and it was over.
And it happens overnight sometimes. You turn around and you're like, what the hell is this?
We beat that horse for a long time. It just it was just time to put it.
I remember
sure.
Silky telling me in the early 90s, like a year after grunge broke, the Scorpions come and they're playing the outdoor backyard at Masquerade for like 50 people. And it started raining.
Yeah, it was their worst. It had to be their worst concert ever because it was a torrential downpour.
Yeah.
And they're under like a tent thing on the, over the stage, and the tent would fill with water to where the roadies would come with brooms and dump the water, and it would just douse the front three rows
and there's
people.
Probably like 50
and
people there, and Nirvana's just raging across the country at the time. And that happens. Bands run their course.
Dude, Nirvana, like it, like 1 minute you're watching, like back then when MTV still played videos, they're playing crap like Britney Fox and Poison and stuff, and then boom, Nirvana comes on. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Well, who cares about Firehouse? I want to see these dudes.
Yeah. For me, it was blue jeans and some heavy guitar again.
Yeah.
And not somebody, is that a chick or is that a guy? I never really dug that,
Yeah, it was just a great time for music. I think it was the last real big music change, like the last big push for metal, and then you went into like the radio rock era after that, where you had like all the the Chevelles and the Stereo Muds, and you had all those big bands,
there's times where you have to go underground to find the good shit. You know what I mean? Because after grunge, you had Caius and you had the whole stoner rock thing happening, but that wasn't mainstream. That was underground.
No, you wouldn't get played on the radio. Yeah. You had to go find that shit, and it wasn't like it wasn't like your local radio station was playing it, or maybe the college stations were, and back then college station was very relevant, so we kept it dialed in, and we were hearing those bands going, oh fuck man, like the Melvins. Listen to that dude's guitar tone. I've never heard anything like that. It's like it was.
I hear the Melvins aspect. I hear in Thunder Horse is kind of the pacing. Like the Melvins, when they first started playing, it was hardcore was at its height. Everybody was trying to play as fast as possible, and King Buzza is like, "Fuck it, we're going to play as slow as we can." And I notice you guys. Yeah,
I love this.
You guys do some of that kind of pacing, real atmospheric. Just
I have to play,
and that's obviously Sabbath started a lot of that. Even the Melvins were getting that from Sabbath if they were honest with themselves.
We're gonna add a Pitbull Daycare playlist, but I won't include anything from Unclean.
Please don't. It's a shit album.
No, because all I have is 666 and the other one.
Yeah, 666.
That's I like that title.
Oh yeah. Shit. Yeah, I've got that, and You, Me, and the Devil Make Three.
I like that album. That one was probably the heaviest album. 666 was a little bit more like that was kind of our Lords of Acid era when we toured with those guys. It was really kind of like
that's
clubby
awesome.
and shit like that. It was fun.
Right. Kind of industrial.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and you guys cover Ace of Spades.
Yep. Still do, actually.
That's
We
great.
still do. So
That's
the guitar
great.
player from Pitbull is the guitar player in Thunder Horse. So it's
Okay.
him and I started Thunder
But
Horse in 2018.
what
And
inspired
like we
Right.
had
what
talked to each other
inspired
for a
you
year.
after 10 years away from music to get back into it, and specifically to start a band of this kind of is Doom the kind of the would you consider this band Doom, or what if you had to categorize it? I know nobody likes categorizing their music, but if you had to, what would you call this?
Yeah. I think it's a safe assumption to say that doom is such a big umbrella nowadays. You know,
Yeah.
it's not just Candlemass and My Dying Bride anymore. It's like they call everything doom, and I think it's kind of the safest thing to say
Right,
what genre you are, because a lot of people don't understand. It's like, oh, we're doom, psychedelic, prog, classic
right,
rock,
right.
Jeez.
Texas metal.
Yeah.
They don't get
Well, like somebody recently, I my wife is a nurse and she's in this clinical thing. They're she's studying for another certification, and some kid in there, and she mentions to him that I'm an old metalhead. And he says, "Well, what kind of metal?" And she's like, "Well, Maiden, Priest." And this kid says, "Oh, that's boomer metal." And she texted me that, and I said, "Tell that 19-year-old little bitch to get the zippers out of his pants." And the kid was 19, so it was hysterical. But
that is funny. Yeah.
boomer metal, I never want to hear that again. And now I've said it
So
a couple
I'll
times.
edit that out. I'll beep it. It'll just be beep metal. So
Yeah.
so what
Yeah.
inspired you to come back with this genre and kind of just start crushing skulls like you cats are doing now?
Right on. So after Pitbull split up, I left San Antonio. I just kind of split, and I was like, hey, look, I'm getting fucking older. The rock and roll thing is done. That's not my job anymore. I need to go get a real job. So I became a commercial diver and started doing like underwater construction and moved off to the Gulf Coast to work in the oil field, work in the oil industry. And I still do that. I still work in oil and energy. And but when I was working offshore, it was you just work your ass off for like 12 to 14 hours a day, and then you have nothing to do. So of course, me being the way I am, a musician my whole life, I started kind of like writing lyrics here and there, coming up with songs, just riffs here and there. And then after, like I said, literally after 10 years, I reached out to Todd, the other guitar player. I was like, hey man, I've got a few songs. I need some help. Can you maybe help me finish these things up? And send them to him, and just to satisfy my own ego. And he really liked the stuff. And every song that I sent him was what you hear on the very first album, the self-titled album. Those and that and
Oh,
that's
great.
how it all started. And I was just heavily, because at the time I was listening to Orange Goblin and
Yeah.
Caius, and I was listening to that stuff offshore. That was shit that was playing in my headphones all day long.
Right.
So that's who I was inspired by at the time. And then another buddy of mine, a former guitar player for Ministry, was like, "Hey, dude, I need some lyrics done on a song of mine. Can you help me out?" I cut him. He goes, "Well, you're not really the style I'm looking for." He was looking for more kind of like an Ian Gillan type thing, and that's not
Oh,
what
wow.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm
The
not good at that
vocal
shit.
style?
Yeah, and that I
Wow.
was like, that's
That's
not in my
that's
wheelhouse,
like
bro. I'm
saying
gonna
I'm
fuck it
looking
up.
for a Rob Halford kind of thing. That's gonna be hard to find. Ian Gillan or a Dio. I
Yeah.
want somebody who sounds like Dio.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what he was looking for. He was looking for somebody that was kind of more traditional. He was really he's like, I really wanted like a Blue Oyster Cult type thing, like
Wow.
that kind of era. And I was like, yeah, okay, wasn't in my
Right.
comfort zone at all. But
Yeah.
by
That's hard
doing
to
that
do.
for him, like it made me write down some lyrics and like kind of come up with like actually start writing lyrics again. and that's what kind of fell on top of the riffs I was writing offshore. And it turned into the first record. Like, it was completely fucking by accident. It was never intended to be a band. It was just, like I said, an ego project. But I thought the songs came out pretty good. So I was like, fuck, I've never put out a vinyl record before. That would be another ego stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Paid for it myself, put it out ourselves. And the next thing you know, we hit the Doom charts, like peaked out at number 12, was on there for 3 months in a row, which you hardly ever see a band stay on there for more than a month or two, And
Wow.
People loved it. Like, we started selling them like wildfire. I had to go to 3 different pressings of the first record, which is unheard of, for an unknown independent band. And then we got picked up by Ripple after that, and that's when Chosen One happened.
That's killer.
Oh yeah, it was total fucking accident, man. And the rig I was on was called the rig I was working on was the BP Thunderhorse rig in the Gulf of Mexico. And that's where I pitched the name. I'd never even fucking heard of Metalocalypse, and until like 2 years later, my brother was like, "Yeah, that's a fucking song." I was like, "I never heard of it, dude." Whatever.
That's a Deathclock song. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I guess they have a song called Thunderhorse or something. Yeah.
I thought you might have taken it from that. But.
Totally pinched it from a fucking offshore rig, man. I never even heard it. And I joke about it all the time in interviews because people are like, what about the Death Clock connection? Do you know those guys? I was like, I'd never even fucking seen the cartoon, man. My brother just happened to tell me about him. He was, he's a decade younger than I am. So he was like, oh, yeah, I grew up on that shit, And
that's great.
Yeah. Oops. Sorry. But I mean, what are you gonna do? You can't call a band fucking Machine Head because
right.
There's an album cover called that, or a fucking you can't call Machine Head can't be, or Gavin Rosdale from Bush fucking says Machine Head, so all of a sudden you can't name a band.
Robot Lords of Tokyo, their band name comes from some Clutch lyrics. So I mean, it happens all the time. Yeah.
What I was like, fuck, man, that sounds kind of familiar. I guess that's what it was.
I love the song "Demons Speak."
Yeah.
Some of these they're just like the music is great, but the song title to me they're just I really I don't want to say identify, but they grab me. I'm digging the hell out of these. So.
What inspired the Dear Mr. Fantasy cover? That's a pretty badass track you cats laid down there.
Dude, it was I just heard it one day in the car and I was like, fuck, I love this song, man. And so I went into it, I heard the Traffic version, then went in and heard the Stephen Stills version. And I was like, man, this is just a bitchin' fucking song. And I just cut a demo of it at the house. And actually the lyrics that you hear on the record was my first pass dry run, like demo lyrics. They fit and they work, so I never even recut the fucking vocals on that album.
Yeah, I mean, you miss a couple verses, but it fit. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. When you pull up the lyrics for it, it's literally like one fucking paragraph, and that's it. It's like second verse, same as the first type thing. It's fucking Henry VIII over and over and over.
It fits that kind of medium tempo kind of pacing you cats do in a lot of your songs. I thought it fit in really well.
It's an eerie fucking song, man. It's like, it's a creepy fucking song if you really like pay attention to what he's saying.
Oh yeah,
it's fucking doom. There's no way around it.
Sure. I like the stoner ride, like King and just like almost every band in the stoner rock genre.
Amazing. There's a lot of good bands out there, but it is you got to dig around for them, but
it's a big tent right now, man. There's a lot of great bands out there. Ripple Music's been putting out some badass stuff. Magnetic Eye, the Heavy Psych Sounds. Like, there's so many good labels just putting fucking good rock and roll out. It's like it's really nice to see organic musicianship, good players, people that care about what they're doing. And every time I go to one of these festivals or we play a festival, I always come away with a band that I've never heard of that just fucking melted my face.
You into Earthless at all? Shit. Earthless is fucking amazing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I caught up at Psycho Las Vegas, I think, in like
Yeah.
2019 or so, and I was just fucking blown away. And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a guy from Chris Robertson's band or whatever." I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh shit, really?" You know,
Have you heard Lee Van Cleef?
I don't think I know the name. I don't think I've heard it, or it sounds familiar.
They're an Italian. They're an Italian stoner rock band. They do a lot of instrumentals. The last time I checked with them, they only had the one album.
Cool.
But that's somebody we need to try and get on the show. But they're real trippy, like Earthless.
We've hit up a lot of his
that dude's just a badass guitar player.
One thing I've gone back and forth with Snags about is the stoner rock title for that genre. I always felt it kind of diminished the bands, kind of dumb them down a bit. And I don't know what I would call that genre, but I'm one of those people that I just kind of cringe when I hear it, the stoner rock,
Yeah, like we get
but what can you do?
Yeah, we get put in the stoner rock bucket a lot of times, and like none of us get high. I mean, fuck, I used to back in the days now, but I have like a job. I got to get up and do like a 9 to 5, or like a real, like I got to go make a check, man, make a living.
The real deal.
How do you fucking think I pay for the band stuff? It's it's not touring,
Yeah.
It
costs so much to tour right now. It's like you got to have a real job,
Yeah. Now you guys just you either played a festival or you got voted. That it was posted recently. What was that?
We played Berkey Rock City Festival in Albuquerque this past weekend. 2 weekends ago, and it was it used to be a Monolith on the Mesa up in Taos, but they kind of like scaled it back a little bit and did it down in Albuquerque this time. And dude, I'm gonna tell you right now, there were some unbelievably great bands on there. The people were super cool. Albuquerque's like a badass vibe, it's like a cool scene in the Southwest. It was a great weekend, and it was just nice to get out of Texas and go somewhere else and like kind of like be with like-minded people,
So actually,
yeah.
So Steven, you mentioned you don't play Gibson guitars. Now give us a little bit of a gear breakdown for. I'm a really bad musician. I call this my skull cave. I've got a guitar, a bass, and a drum set in here. I can play them all badly. So I'm interested in. I'm a little bit of a gear nerd. Give me a gear breakdown real quick.
So Thunder Horse are proud Orange amplifier ambassadors. So we heavily represent Orange, but they've been really, really great to us. And it's obvious the tone that we get from them, the sound we get from them it really kind of helps us shape our sound. I personally have been playing Fender guitars like my whole life, Telecasters and Stratocasters, and I'm not a lead player, right? I'm actually not even really a good guitar player.
Just rhythm.
I thank God I have. Yeah, just straight rhythm for me. So people always they see me put a Stratocaster on, they're like, "Oh, this guy is going to be fucking like the lead guy." No, not far from it. I just like the way they fucking feel. They're comfortable.
So what's your name to Ingve just to confuse them even more?
Yeah,
totally. Or Uli, Ingve.
Uli, yeah. What is your lead? What's your lead guitarist play?
Todd right now is he was always a Gibson guy. Like as long as I've known him, he always played Explorers, like Z-shaped bodies. But now lately, after we did this European run, he because the Explorers were so big, he wanted to take a guitar that's a little bit smaller and easier to travel with. So he started playing like this Nash Telecaster. And now that's like his main fucking guitar. Killer. Like he's totally playing like a Nash Telecaster.
Did he put some fat humbuckers in there to Gibson up the sounds?
This one had a humbucker in it, so it's like it's a ripping fucking guitar, and Telecasters are just, it's just a smaller Les Paul, really, you know what I mean? It's just a solid body guitar, but I like Fenders because the scale of the neck to me just feels a little longer. Like I can't play a Les Paul. It feels like a fucking ukulele to me. It has a real short scale in the neck. They just don't feel comfortable to me. It feels odd.
And a lot of people have trouble with the SGs, just getting the high notes on SGs because of the shape of that body, and
Yeah, they just sound thin to me, you know. Like I love an SG. I think they look fucking mean as hell. I used to play like one of the gothic ones
Yeah.
back in the old days, but you know, I just like a little bit more of a girthy hunk of wood. You know what I mean? And I get that when with a Telly or a Strat, like you just don't get that. You don't get that
Yeah.
feeling with an SG.
You're-
Right now, I'm actually playing a Jim Root Jazzmaster. I mean, not trying to be like the Slipknot guy or
Right.
anything like that, but the guitar is fucking
Hmm.
amazing, you know, and it feels good. And Jesus Christ, that thing must weigh fucking 18 pounds. I
Right.
mean, it just you feel like you're playing a heavy metal guitar, and it's a Jazzmaster.
You ever
You know?
play a Gretsch?
Yeah, I've played them. Not a big fan of them. I definitely can't do the hollow
Those are
bodies
just
because when
huge.
we play with so much gain, it's just ungodly
Sure.
noisy, you know.
So I was going to ask you, you've got the upcoming album. How's that coming along? Do you have a date yet, or?
Yeah, the album actually dropped on July 21st. And then we hit number one on the July Doom charts. So even though we had a late release that month, which was completely caught us off guard, we weren't expecting that.
Right. Well, that's after
Truly
the
appreciate
fall,
all the
right?
writers. Yeah, after the
Okay.
fall. That's the latest
Yeah,
release.
I thought you
that's the
said
one.
you had another one in the works or something.
Now we have a live album that'll probably come out next year sometime. Like it's already in the can, graphics, everything are
Nice.
done, but it's up to the label whether or not
Sure.
they're gonna release
Right.
it and when, you know. But we figured for our fourth album that put a live album out, get some, you know, and that kind of keeps you alive
Sure.
in the media cycle,
Sure.
right? You know, because otherwise it's 2 to 3 years in between records, and I didn't want to wait that long. I wanted to put one out right.
Well,
after
and
You could be like Kiss in the early '70s and do an album every 6 months.
yeah, fucking Black Sabbath did their first 3
Yeah,
records 8 months
Yeah.
apart, each one of them. You know,
Yeah.
talk about animals, man.
What
That
was
was
the-
fucking crazy.
and
Go ahead. So,
to the level of quality with those first 3 Sabbath albums, they were on fire.
yeah, that's amazing that they
Dude, you
put
know
those
what?
out
Everybody
that
says
fast.
yeah, the first 4 for those guys was like, you know, that is the standard, right?
Oh,
They set the bar on album 1 through 4.
Yeah.
And then for probably guys like us, then it started getting really interesting and fun. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like when you start getting Never Say Die, and you're getting all these fucking crazy technical ecstasy and all
Sure.
these weird records.
Well, I
It's like-
love Volume 4, and I feel like Volume 4 gave birth to all of your, you know, stoner rock. Volume 4 is just epic, but very much like the Doors. I like the Doors from Soft Parade on far better than their first 3, only because you've heard the first 3 Doors albums so much. You're like, man, I don't want to hear Love Me 2 Times again. Let me, you know.
Yeah.
So those last 3, just like the later Sabbath albums, to me are far more interesting. But Paranoid is probably my favorite album of all time by anyone. So
I'd have to say that Paranoid is my favorite Black Sabbath
Yeah.
album. I just think that you know, collection of songs is just fucking so
Yeah.
good. You know, so that out of all the first 4, that is my favorite.
yeah, War Pigs. Jesus.
I hear
Nothing.
somewhere I heard that whenever John Bonham would visit them, he'd always want to sit down and play Supernaut with them. That song has such a great groove. I can totally see him.
Oh yeah.
Let's play Supernaut again, man. I would love
It's
to
a great
be in the
song.
room
We-
with fucking
we
John
played that one.
Bonham jamming on Supernaut. Holy crap! Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fucking crazy. We did Supernaut on the Ministry tour with Mikey Skasha, the old, you know, rest in peace. He got on stage with us and played Supernaut, and it was fucking it was cool, you know, to have
Yeah.
Mikey get up there and
I
jam with us.
I saw Ministry at Lakewood in Atlanta, and they did Supernaut, and Kirk Hammett came on stage and played with them.
Nice. That's
Right
great.
on.
That
That's
that
cool.
was pretty cool. But
So tell us
Great guitar
about
player.
tell us about
Great
the
guitar player.
European tour. How'd that go? Any interesting stories from that tour? And then tell us about
just any road
then
stories.
tell yeah.
Any,
Let's start with the European tour since that happened recently, and then lay on us some of the wildest shit that's happened in your career as a musician on the road.
Yeah, the we went to the UK this past like spring, early summer, and we went over there for Desert Fest. Desert Fest London is like this huge fucking festival. It's like one of the premier events over there for our type of music, right? And by getting invited to play that festival, we decided to go ahead and stick around for about 3 weeks, and we did like I think 15 more shows while we were there, so a total of 15 or 16, and it was all over the UK. We did England, Wales. We didn't make it to Scotland, unfortunately, and we didn't make it to Ireland, but it was all over England and all over and Wales, which was it was brilliant. We didn't go into the EU proper because it was a short run and the visas and shit like that. But the response was so good and like we had such a good time that's what we're heading back in 2024 to hopefully go support this record and maybe the live album out to kind of give us another media run and then but we want to do the UK and the EU this time, not just the UK. But it was killer. The people were so badass. It was like it's totally different there. The food is completely fucking different. The people, you can tell the people there like appreciated. Oh man, the beer was good. I don't think they put any fucking water in the beer over there though. I was so dehydrated the entire time. It was just.
Do you find the fans versus the fans here completely different? Like you get the guy that wants to talk real loud and slap your back and just you're in America, and then how are they in Europe?
In Europe, it was they seemed very appreciative and very they were very focused on what was happening on stage with all the bands.
Yeah,
it's like they're very into the show.
They're what I mean? Studying like these people
are like, they love rock and roll, and or whatever type, and they were into it. And like you said, you get that here in America, but it is a little bit different. I think America is so saturated with so many bands and touring that you can go see a band almost 7 days a week in the US, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they quite have that that saturation there. So when bands do come, especially from America that they never get to see, they're fucking in it. They're in it 110%.
Yeah.
It makes you feel good to see people like singing along, head bobbing, like they knew the words.
That's
like these people were
great.
like they were into the shit.
I love it.
It was awesome, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, because you get the guy here that just wants to slam a bunch of beer and maybe get in a fight, and he's not there to see anything.
Well, that's mainly
No, he's just
mainly Florida where you are, Brett.
Yeah, Florida man.
Texas is pretty good.
Yeah, I am the Florida man. But it sucks. And a lot of bands just don't come down here, or where I'm at, Fort Myers. Say somebody big comes, they're gonna play. Like say Iron Maiden comes down, they're gonna play 2 hours away, either in Tampa or Fort Lauderdale, and it's 2 hours away. So with the cost of concert tickets, if you want a decent seat, you're dropping $150 to $300 for one seat. Then you drive 2 hours. Gas is almost $4 a gallon. So you're up to $300-400 at that point, and maybe you get a hotel because you're getting out at midnight and you're 2 hours away. Now you've dropped $1,000. It's insane,
dude. It is
for the same hour and a half set that you saw 10 years ago for $30, or however long.
It was more than 10 years ago when it was
concert
$30
tickets right now. Yeah, the concert prices. I was talking about that earlier with somebody. It was just like it's sad, really, So fuck, man. Most of these people, most of the guys that go to our shows, they're having a hard time making ends meet. They just want to go out and have a couple of beers and listen to good music.
Yeah.
So we we only charge for a show if we have to.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's a traveling situation or something like that. But when we play in San Antonio, like the show I'm doing tomorrow night for the album release party, like it's free. Like we're not charging anything. I'm just gonna sell some fucking records and some t-shirts, hang out with my friends, and you know, and it'll be packed. The fucking place will be assholes to elbows in there. You know what I mean? It's gonna be slam packed.
There was a time when rock concerts and baseball games were blue collar events, and those times are gone, man. And any big arena band or any major league team you want to go see, you got to be middle class to upper middle class to even afford a ticket. It's crazy.
Well, I think a lot of the kids that might dig you are too busy looking at YouTube or some video game now. That's a bigger competition. When I would say, even you, Steve, when we were growing up, all we did was go to shows. You camped out for shows. Maybe you ran the list for a show and then went to that show.
Yeah. It was every weekend we were at, whether it was some kind of club somewhere to see, like, in the 80s, it was like like you said, hardcore bands. I was going to see like really great hardcore bands.
Yeah.
And then, back then you had like punks and skins and fucking new wavers and like it was just all kinds of people at these shows.
Yeah.
Now it's like I said, I just think that the market can be a little bit saturated.
Possibly.
And it costs a lot of money to do business in America right now. So these clubs are trying to fucking they're trying to make a buck too, and unfortunately it's at the patron's expense sometimes.
Well, and the pandemic certainly didn't help.
Proper fucked everything.
Yeah.
Fucked everything.
Yeah.
I remember everybody went out and like fucking scrambled to buy live stream bullshit. I've got a stack of that stuff and never did a fucking live stream one.
Yeah.
In 2 years, but I've got all kinds of stuff.
I sat here and watched Metallica about 6 times streaming. I even streamed a Motorhead show, which somehow they Lemmy had already passed, but it was a cool show in Texas somewhere.
Right on. Yeah, I'm glad that bands did that. I got to see some cool shows. Graveyard did one. And a few other bands, like some bands are Cadaver, like some really great bands.
Yeah,
and it was entertaining to watch them, but
it's not the same.
It's not the same, and none of us could wait to get back out and like just start being around people again. I remember the first show we did when it kind of like Texas opened back up again. We did a show.
Uh-huh.
And my motherfuckers were like these are burly metalhead dudes, and they like had tears in their eyes because they hadn't seen live music in so long. And we were like the first one out the chute that said, "Yeah, we're fucking playing.
Yeah.
We don't care about the rules. We're doing it." And dude, it was kind of a weird experience to see like these big tough metal dudes and like all emotional because they hadn't seen a band in like fucking almost over a year.
Yeah, that's not. It's I miss. If I had known the situation in Florida, I would have never moved down here just for live music. Because, you live in Atlanta and Snags goes and sees stuff all the time. Maybe not all the time, but he has. He's seen a lot of stuff. And I've been down here since 2005, and the shows are few and far between because nobody comes down here. So,
yeah. Yeah, even like where you go to Janice Landing or you go to Tampa, right? There's like the two places you're going to go see shows, like you said. But it's going to Florida is out of the way.
Yeah,
it's kind of like coming to the Gulf Coast of Texas. It's like nobody goes to Corpus Christi,
right?
It's fucking out of the way, right? It's a little bit further than San Antonio,
right? Yeah, I'd love to go to Corpus Christi.
Yeah, it's a killer town.
Yeah.
Really good bands, good venues. But you never see like, oh yeah, so and so's playing Corpus Christi. It's like nobody fucking.
I bet you got good food trucks and stuff there. Austin was amazing for bands.
Well, yeah, Austin. That's it. Austin has a whole genre. So many good bands came from Austin.
Oh yeah.
There still are. I know. Like we're playing Ripple Fest in September, which is a great festival. If you guys ever want to come to Texas to see a festival, I highly recommend Ripple Fest.
Uh-huh.
It's usually 4 days.
Oh,
2 nights of it this year are outdoors, 2 nights of it are indoors. So it's you get a little bit of both.
yeah.
But it's like it's badass bands, and it's put on by a really great promoter who happens to be in a badass band. The venues are very good, and it's right there in South Austin. So that is like that's that's God's country up there. It's
Sure.
beautiful in that area. It's a beautiful part of Texas.
So one thing I wanted to ask you, writing songs, do you guys get together and like rehearse and work the songs that way, or do you come in with everything done in your mind and everybody else kind of gets told, hey, I want it this, or I mean, how do you guys form your songs?
So we all live in different places. The bass player lives in Oklahoma. I live in Houston. The drummer and Todd, the other lead player, live in San Antonio. So everything we do writing wise is done via file share, like in Dropbox.
Gotcha.
So I'll put some riffs down, some basic program drums, and we just kind of like Dropbox everything to everybody until we kind of have and we all have like our own recording software, whether
Sure.
it's Logic, Pro Tools, Cubase, whatever the fuck anybody's using right now.
Right.
And so we kind of build our songs that way, and then we record them that way too. Like we'll go into the studio and record drums, but everything on the first 3 records, all the guitars and vocals and everything were done at home.
Wow.
Like none of that shit was done in a studio.
Well, I mean, do you try to do something like this and like play to each other and kind of see how it's gonna
never have
evolve? No.
Yeah, never. Like we never get to do a collective stream where we're like kind of do the jam along stream. We've never done that. Todd and I are really the primary songwriters.
Right.
Like we write the bulk of it. Dave, the bass player, he's the one that wrote Demon Speak on the first album. He has a good contribution. But yeah, it's a good one. We still play it. Like that's like the only song on the first record that we still play live.
That's my favorite on there. That's good to hear. And it comes across like I've been listening to the playlist I put together for you guys, and it feels like you guys are in the same room,
We've all been jamming together for a really long time. So we kind of have that relationship. That's where good. We don't really have to be in the same room to write together. It is nice. Like I just got back from rehearsal. That's why things were running late today, getting with you guys, but it was it's nice to get with them and run through stuff and go, oh, hey, I have a new riff. Let's check this out real quick. Instead of just being fucking cold and digital.
Yeah.
Via Dropbox.
That's what I was, because that's what it sounds like. But on the record, it breathes. You can, I feel like you guys are all right there with each other,
Yeah. I appreciate that, man.
It comes across.
Like I said, we've been together so long. We all just have Todd and Dave, the bass player and lead player, grew up together since they were fucking in elementary school, right?
Oh, that's great.
And then I played in a band with Todd. We've been friends for almost 30 years now, and it's just like we're all buds, right?
Yeah.
And we all
that's the history. That history is what comes through in what you guys create. That's great.
Yeah, I'm glad it feels like it's real organic and that we're doing it together. The wool has been pulled.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's a contrast to hear that it's not that way, because it does come off that way.
That's a huge compliment. I thank you very much for that.
So do you have any soapbox, anything that you want to say on the show? Step out there a little bit.
Anything you want to pimp? Social media, website, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm the Facebook and Twitter or X, whatever it's called this week. I'm that guy. So if you're engaging with me on Facebook or Twitter, you're talking directly to me, and I'm pretty open and candid. Todd, the lead player, he's more the Instagram dude, right? He's the one that's always putting the videos up of play alongs and stuff like that. So, but we're real excited about this record. We're real excited about, working with Orange Amplifiers. We're very excited about being part of the Ripple Music family. It's been a real fast 5 years for us, and we never expected this kind of reaction from people, and to get down and to talk with guys like that it's like, holy shit, man, it's flattering to know that y'all would even give a flying flip about what I have to say or think, and I truly appreciate it. It means a lot to me for you guys to just take the time out of your busy lives to hear what this old goofy redneck, has to say about whether it's, rock and roll from 1978 or, 2008, it doesn't matter. It's like, I appreciate the time.
Well, it sounds like we could go toe to toe with our music knowledge. We're roughly the same age, probably have this very similar record collections.
Probably.
But and the same for us. It was very cool to take a chance and just reach out and say, "Hey, would you be on the show?" And you respond like, "Oh, this is awesome."
He's like, check out this band Thunder Horse. This guy's might be on the show, and I didn't even have to listen to the music. I saw the album cover. I was like, holy crap, this is going to be killer. And then he's like, I made a playlist. I was like, fuck that, I'm listening to all the albums in a row right now. I did that, and it's like, this is going to be great. Cool. So you put stuff out like that, it speaks to people. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of hyper political, just like, but who the fuck isn't nowadays? You know what I mean? I'm anti-politician, whether you're red or blue. I don't give a fuck what you are. Like, I hate them all. I think they're all shit. But it comes across in my lyrics. It comes across in the songs. If you listen to the start of the record, it's kind of like the first album all the way to After the Fall. It's a story. If you kind of, but I leave it up to the critical thinkers to kind of put all the pieces together. Where the band started and where we are now, and where do you think the next record is going? So it should be really fun.
It's good to keep the art in it. That's what I like. I'm a big fan of the Clash. I wouldn't say I think their political opinions were naive, but they were artistic enough with their music to keep it interesting. So I think if you do like the way you're talking about, you keep some poetry and some art in there, then it works. You're not just ranting about politics. Like Rage Against the Machine. I can't think of a more boring band lyrically.
Yeah, it can be a little bit of a one trick pony. It's like it gets tired, in my opinion. So, and I don't want every song to be about how much I fucking hate politicians, but I'm gonna put probably one on there somewhere. I'll sneak one in every once in a while. So it's a great conversation. I appreciate you letting me ramble for a while. It was fun. I do really appreciate you guys reaching out.
We started this podcast because we were having these fucking conversations anyways. We just get into these insane, how come Burn is such a good album and then, Whitesnake sucks, and, David Coverdale is so killer on, and these just long, insane conversations. So one day we're texting about, how Ronnie James Dio did this amazing feat of, 6 classic albums in a row with 3 different bands, 2 Sabbath, two Rainbow. I wouldn't say the first Rainbow album is classic, but those last 2, and 2 with Rainbow, 2 with Sabbath, and then 2 with his solo band Dio. That's a 6-pack, 6 flawless albums in a row, and with 3 different bands. And we're like, we should just record this conversation. And that was our first episode of the podcast. So,
Yeah. I just watched the fucking Dio documentary today when I got to the hotel. I was like, Dio documentary's on.
That's really good. It's going to street date the end of September finally.
Hell yeah.
That if you want to own the Blu-ray or whatever.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, it was a brilliantly done documentary, and it kind of, I didn't realize that Dio was a trumpet player too.
It started out that way.
I was gonna say that when you started on that. I'm like,
yeah.
Dio, there's gonna be a CD's worth of unreleased Dio stuff coming soon.
Wow.
Keep an eye out for that. And I'll keep if I see it, I'll forward it to you.
Please do. Yeah,
Just,
hope you guys stay in touch and
oh,
this isn't a
absolutely.
one
And
and done. You know, I want to keep in touch with you guys as possible.
yeah, I would love that. As when this live album comes out, you got to have like 4 posters of each of you, and they all
Yeah,
connect.
it's got to be like the Kiss
No
solo album
one's
poster.
no one's ever done that, Steve. That'd
Yeah,
I
yeah.
be
know, man.
Um,
Dude, I'm at the mercy of the label on that stuff, though. They didn't even want to give me a fucking gatefold. I was like, please, but couldn't do it.
but
ah
no,
well.
seriously, anytime you got something to pimp, a new album or a new tour, hit us up. We'll have you back on. As you can tell, we love talking about this shit, and we'll go on.
Yeah.
We don't even have to plan it. We'll get on here, and whatever we talk about is going to automatically be interesting because we grew up with all the same
Because we're that interesting,
shit. Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah,
Sometimes I talk to myself. It's amazing.
it's crazy.
Well, I enjoyed the conversation, man. It was nice to be kind of a candid conversation about just life in general, and not just all about.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about your record. Where'd you get your name from? Did you do this? Did you do this? Like, you know, we get a lot of the same questions a lot when we're on the media push.
Right.
So it's nice to just kind of have a fucking chill conversation and just talk.
Yeah,
we keep the shit on the reels. Yeah.
The biggest the big for me the biggest part of this podcast is like a fireside chat, very organic.
Yeah.
Put you at ease. We do joke to get a male on the show and ask them what it's like to tour as a man. Because we did a show with Black Sabbath, and we purposely did not ask them what it's like being a woman on the road and all that, because that just seems like such a worn out. How dare you ask me that shit?
Well, it's not a politically correct thing. It's just boring. You know, at this point,
right.
What it's like being a woman on the road in a band like Black Sabbath, which if you didn't know who they are,
yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, they're fucking amazing. And what it's like is they're just fucking killer musicians and touring. You know,
they're people. So it would just
but
be funny
about
like,
we were gonna. Hey man, what's it like being a man touring?
Well, you know, like I get to stand up and pee most of the time. Sometimes,
right?
Kind of cool, you
know. Yeah, man. So why don't we say goodbye to the audience? You stick around for a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll wrap things up. But what's your website? Does Thunder Horse have a website? Yeah,
it's thunderhorseofficial, all one word, .com or .org. .org is the mothership, but just about anything else will take you there.
Thunder Horse official. You got merch and stuff on there.
Those we have merch. Album covers. Can people buy T-shirts of that shit?
Yeah, T-shirts. You can get the vinyl, CDs, cassettes, even. Like, we have all kinds of shit available on the website.
Awesome. Go to thunderhorseofficial.com or .org, your choice, and buy that shit and look cool, because that's some of the most badass album art you're gonna see anywhere. So
it is beautiful.
Yeah. All right. So so all you skullheads out there, we'll see you cats next time. And Steven, stick around. We'll do a little post-show wrap-up. Peace out, motherfuckers.
Thank you, guys.